Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. The topic that we're going to see today is loop statements. In any programming language, including C, loops are used to execute a set of statements repeatedly until a particular condition is satisfied. So it mainly consists of three components: variable initialization, condition, and variable increment or decrement. So let us see the overall structure or the working procedure of a loop. So here, at first, we will see a loop entry. Now, after we enter into this loop, then it will go to the test condition. Now, if the test condition is true, then it will execute the loop. If it is false, then it will be out of the loop. So if it's true, it will execute the loop and again go back to the loop entry. So that is how this is looping. So there are some types of loops. Depending upon the position of a condition in a program, looping in C is classified into two types. Entry control loop: a condition is checked before executing the body of a loop. It is also called as a pre-checking loop. Okay. And then we have the exit control loop. A condition is checked after executing the body of a loop. So it is also called a post-checking loop. So these are the two types of loops that we have based on the position of our condition. We have generally three types of loops in C. The first one is the while loop, which is an entry control loop. Then we have the for loop, which is also an entry control loop. And lastly, we have the do while loop, which is an exit control loop. Now moving on to the while loop. Now here we can see that while loop can be addressed as an entry control loop. So it basically checks the condition before executing the body. This while loop can be completed in three steps. So the first step is the variable initialization, where we initialize our variable. The next step is the condition. Okay, so here what happens is we write the keyword while, and within this while we write our condition, and then after this we enclose this while statement with a second bracket, and then we write our statements. And after we have written our statements, we move on to the last step, which is our increment or decrement. So here we increment or decrement our variables. Now let us see this flowchart to understand how this while loop is executed. Now in the beginning, the while loop starts, right? So after this while loop starts, then what happens is we go to the test condition. Now in this test condition, we check whether it's true or false. So if it's true, then it will execute the loop body and it will again run, okay? But if it's false, then this while loop will end. Now let us see an example of this while loop. So this is a program that I have written for printing the first 10 numbers. So the first 10 numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10, right? So we want to print that using a while loop. Now what happens here is after writing the essential things in our body, we have declared a variable x, and we have initialized the variable x as 1. So this is our first step, right? So the first step is x equals to 1. So after we have initialized as x equals to 1, then within this while loop, what we will do, we will write the condition, which is our second step. So this is our second step. So in this condition, we impose a condition where we tell that x should be less than equals to 10, so that this loop is running. Then what happens is we print the value of x, okay? And after this, we implement our third step, okay? And in this third step, you can see that we are incrementing the value of x by 1, okay? So what is happening here? How will this printf work? So in this while loop, when we are in this while loop, firstly, the value of x is 1. So here what will happen is 1 less than equals to 10? Yes, 1 is less than equals to 10. So the next statement will be implemented. Now printf %dx will print in our output. So in our output, we will be printing 1, right? Okay. Then what happens? The value of x is incremented by 1, right? So after the value of x is incremented by 1, it will again go back to this while loop, okay? Here. Now in this statement, you can see that the value of x is 2 now, okay? Previously it was 1, now it is 2. Now is 2 less than equals to 10? Yes, 2 is in fact less than or equals to 10. So since 2 is less than 10, this condition is satisfied. Now then what happens is it will go to the next statement, and here it will execute this line, which is our printf %dx. Now the value of x is 2, right? So it will print 2. So in this manner, again, it will increment the value of x by 1, and after incrementing the value of x by 1, it will again go back to checking the condition. Now the value of x is 3. So it will check if 3 is less than equals to 10. So obviously 3 is less than 10. That is why this condition is satisfied. So it will go back to its statement and it will execute the next statement, which is printf. Now here we are printing the value of x, and the current value that x holds is 3. And again it will increment the value of x. So in this manner it will print up to 10. So this is how you implement a while loop. Now moving on to the for loop. So for loop can also be addressed as an entry control loop. In for loop we have exactly 2 semicolons, one after the initialization and second after the condition. So as you can see here in our syntax here, firstly after we write the keyword for, within this first bracket we are writing the variable initialization, then which is separated by a semicolon, and then we write the condition. After we have written the condition, we use another semicolon and write the increment and decrement variables. Okay, so in this loop we can have more than one initialization or increment decrement separated using comma operator. So here you can initialize more than one variable using a comma operator, right? For decrement, increment, and for initialization. But we can only have one condition. Okay, so if you want to impose multiple conditions, you cannot do it using a comma, but we can do it using logical operators. So if you want to impose multiple conditions, then you can use logical operators for that matter as well. Now, how is this happening? How is this for loop working? So let us see through this flowchart. So in the beginning, we are starting and we are initializing our expression. Okay, so here simply we can initialize our variable, say our variable is x to 0. Okay, now in this test condition, it will check if this test condition is true or false. So after we have initialized our variable, then it will move on to the condition. Okay, so in this condition, it will check whether the condition is satisfied or not, whether it's true or false. So if it's true, then it will move on to execute the block of statements here. Okay, and after it executes the block of statement, then it will update the expression, which means that it will increment or decrement the value. So after we have executed the statements, then it will increment or decrement the value. Okay, so here we can either do x plus plus or x minus minus, anything that we want, okay, according to our requirement. So what is happening in this for loop? Firstly, we initialize our variable. Okay, after we have initialized our variable, then the condition will be checked. Say the condition can be is n, or if our variable x is less than n or is greater than n, something like this. Okay, so after it checks the condition, what happens is it will execute the block of statements. Say if the condition is satisfied or true, it will execute the block of statements. After the block of statements has been executed, then it will increment or decrement the variable. Okay, after it increments or decrements the variable, then it will go to the second cycle and again check the condition. Okay, and if this condition is satisfied, then again it will move on to executing this block of statements. And after it has executed the block of statements, it will either increment or decrement the variable, and then again it will check the condition. So let us see how this is working through an example. So this is a very simple example that I have given, and I have shown this example for the while loop as well. So this is a program for printing the first 10 numbers. So what happens here is the initialization, the condition, and the increment decrement are all in the same line, which are separated through a semicolon, right? So here what we are doing is, firstly, in this for loop, we are initializing, right? I equals to 1. Then in our condition, we are writing I should be less than or equals to 10, since we want to print the first 10 numbers only. And then in our increment or decrement, we want to increment the value, right? So it should be I plus plus, since we want to print from 1 to 10. So we are giving here I plus plus. Now what is happening in this printf? We are printing the value of I. So firstly, what will happen is the value of I is 1, right? Initially. Then it will check the condition. Is 1 less than or equals to 10? Yes, 1 is less than 10. So it will print 1 in our output. Okay. So after printing 1, what will happen is this print after this printf statement, it will increment or decrement the value of I by 1, which is I plus plus. So after the statement is executed, after all these statements in our for loop is executed, the increment or decrement operator will be executed. So this is executed at the last of our statements. Okay. So I plus plus means that the value of I will be changed to 2. Now it will again go back to the for loop and it will check the condition. Okay. So it will check whether I is less than or equals to 10. Yes. 2, now the current value of I, which is 2, is less than 10. So it will print the value of 2. So here it is printing the value of 2. Now again, this statement, the third expression here, will be implemented, okay, at the end of our statement. Now I plus plus means that the value of I will be 3, right? So after it's 3, it will again go back to the condition and will check whether 3 is less than or equals to 10. Yes, 3 is less than 10, so it will be printing 3. And in this way, it will be printing up to 10. Okay. Now, what you can understand is after the initialization is done, it is no longer seen. But then the condition is checked, and after checking the condition, these statements are executed. So after the statements are executed, what happens is the third expression here, the increment or decrement, is implemented at the last of our statements. Then after that is implemented, it will again go back to the for loop and it will check the condition. Then after, if the condition is satisfied, then it will again execute the statements and then it will again increment or decrement the value. So in this manner, this cycle will continue. Okay. So let us see another example of for loop, and this time we will be seeing a nested for loop. Okay. So here by nested, we mean that we will be using a for loop within another for loop. So the program that I have written here is a program for printing the first 10 numbers 5 times. We want to print this up to 1 to 10 5 times. Okay. So how can we do that? So here you can see that we have declared two variables, I and j, right? Now here what we are doing is, since we want to print 1 to 10 5 times, so this will be our outer loop, okay? Outer loop. And the for loop that is inside this loop is known as our inner loop, okay? So let us just assume this now. So in our outer loop, what we need to do is we need to run this code 5 times, okay? So that we can print 1 to 10 5 times. So our outer loop is initialized as j equals to 1, j less than equals to 5, and j plus plus. All right. Then in our inner loop, what we want to do, we want to print the first 10 numbers, right? So our inner loop will continue to print 1 to 10. So it will run 10 times. So our inner loop will run from 1 to 10, okay? And our outer loop will run 1 to 5 times, since we want to print the first 10 numbers 5 times. So let us see how this is happening. So when j is equals to 1 and j is less than equals to 5, which means that 1 is less than equals to 5, right? So what will happen is it satisfies this condition. So it will execute this statement now. Now the value of j is equals to 1, right? And now here what we can see is the value of I is initialized to 1 and I is less than equals to 10, which satisfies this condition. So it will print the value of I, and it will do so how many times? Sorry, this will be I, okay, not j plus plus. This will be I plus plus. Now here what will be happening is that this statement will be continuing for 10 times, okay? So in this manner, when j is equals to 1, this will be our output. Now after we have broken from this loop, it will print a new line. So we are now here, okay, in the new line. So now the value of j is incremented. When we are coming here, the value of j is incremented, and we check if j is less than or equals to 5. Yes, since the value of j is incremented, the current value of j will become how much? 2. So when the current value of j is 2, yes, 2 is less than or equals to 5. Now in this for loop, what will happen is the value of I will be initialized again, okay, since we are starting this loop again. Okay, we have broken out from this loop, and again when j is equals to 2, we are starting in this loop again, right? So when j is equals to 2, I will again be initialized to 1, and we will be checking this condition and then executing the statements as we have done previously. Okay, so again when I is initialized as 1, up till I is equals to 10, this will continue to print the value of I. So when j is equals to 2, it will again print up to 1, 2, 3, 10. So this was for j is equals to 1, okay? This statement was for j is equals to 1 and this statement is for j is equals to 2. Similarly, for j equals to 3 up to j equals to 5, this will be printed, okay? This will be printed. So in this manner, 1 to 10 will be printed a total of 5 times using this do loops. Now let us move on to the do while loop. So in some situations, it is necessary to execute the body of the loop before testing the condition. Such situations can be handled with the help of a do while loop, which is an exit control loop. So here what we are doing is we are basically executing the body of the loop before testing the condition. So do statement evaluates the loop first and at the end the condition is checked with the while statement. So here you can see in this syntax that in this do the statement or the loop of the body is executed and then inside the while we are checking the condition. Okay. So it means that the body of the loop will be executed at least once even if the starting condition inside while is not satisfied. So say for example the value of I is set to 0. Okay, initially the value of I is set to 0. We have declared a variable I and it is set to 0. And in our condition what we are doing is we are checking if I is greater than 0. Okay, so this is our condition. So now since I is equals to 0, this condition will not be satisfied, right? But this do while what it will do is it will execute the statements even if this condition is not satisfied. That is why this is known as an exit control loop. That is, the statements are executing before the condition. So here from this flowchart, this will be a bit more clear. So you see the do while loop starts, okay? And what will happen is it will execute the loop body and then check if the condition is true or false. So if the condition is true, again it will again execute the loop body, and if it's false, then it will end. Okay. Now let us see an example of a do while loop. So in this example, what we can see is we will be again printing the first 10 numbers, okay, from 1 to 10. So here, similar to our while loop, what we did was we initialized the value x equals to 1. Then within this do while loop, we will be writing the first statement, which is our printf x, okay? And then we will be incrementing or decrementing the value of x. We have incremented the value since we want to print the first 10 numbers. And then in this while loop, what we will be doing is we will be imposing our condition now, okay? Like x is less than equals to 10. In while loop, the condition was checked here, right? But instead of that, in this do while loop, the condition is checked here. Besides this, everything else is the same, okay? So here what will be happening in our output, we will be getting, say, so firstly the value of x is initialized to 1, and then in our printf we are printing the value of x, right? So when x is equals to 1, this will be printed no matter if the condition is satisfied or not. So this 1 will be printed. Then when the value of x is incremented by 1, it will check the condition whether it's true or not. Since the condition is true, since 1 is less than 10, it will print 2. So up until x is less than or equals to 10, it will keep on printing the value of x, okay? And when it's 10, okay, it will also print the value, and afterwards when 10 is incremented and it will become 11, it will check that 11 is less than or equals to 10 is not satisfied, right? 11 is not less than or equals to 10. In fact, it's greater than 10. So this condition is not satisfied and the loop will be broken and the next statement will be executed. This do while loop is a bit similar to the while loop, but the only difference is the condition is checked after the loop statement has been executed. But in our while loop, the condition was checked before the loop body was executed. So this is just the basic difference. Now let us see how we can jump out of the loops. So sometimes while executing a loop, it becomes necessary to skip part of the loop or to leave the loop as soon as a certain condition becomes true. So this is known as jumping out of a loop, okay? So we have two types of jumping out of a loop. So here the first one is the break statement. So when break statement is encountered inside a loop, the loop is immediately exited and the program continues with the statement immediately following the loop. So here I have written a while loop, right? And in this while loop, we check the condition, we implement some statements, and since some condition have been met, we have written this break, right? And after we have written this break, what happens is it will immediately jump out of this loop and the program will continue from this part. Okay, so it jumps out of the loop no matter how many cycles are left. So writing this statement break, what it will do, it will force the compiler to come out of this loop and it will start executing the program immediately the line after this while loop has ended. Okay, now moving on to the continue statement. So this is another way of jumping out of loops, but it has a different feature. So what happens is it causes the control to go directly to the test condition and then continues the loop process. So on encountering continue, cursor leaves the current cycle of loop and starts with the next cycle. So for the for loop, continue statement causes the conditional statement and increment portions of the loop to execute. Okay, this is for loop. So if in our for loop we write this continue, what will happen is the continue statement will cause the condition and the increment portion of the loop to be executed. So for the while and do while loops, continue statement causes the program control to pass to the conditional test only. So here in this while loop, as you can see, this after this continue statement is implemented, it will jump to the next cycle directly. This statements will not be executed. So here, as you can imagine, there can be the increment operation here as well. So the statement 4 is the increment operation where we are incrementing the variable I++. So if you write continue, so this I++ will not be executed. Rather, it will directly go to this while loop and it will again check the condition. Okay. So this continue is written whenever we are using an if-else statement. Okay. Some control statements. If one of those statements satisfies the condition, then we usually write this continue statement. Thank you. This will be all for today's class. Hope you have understood and enjoyed the class as well.